This is a recording from a Sunday meeting of the BC Humanist Association in Vancouver. Humanism is a progressive worldview that, without supernaturalism, affirms our ability and responsibility to lead meaningful, ethical lives capable of adding to the greater good of humanity. To learn more about humanism and to support our work, visit bchumanist.ca and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to the BC Humanist podcast. The opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect those of our staff or board of directors.
Thank you very much to the BC Humanist Association, as to our chairperson and all the members. It's a pleasure to meet all of you here. Okay, first let us see where Burma is. This is a small country in Asia. So how Burma, if you had to look at the microscope, this is Burma. It was surrounded by what you call by two big countries, China. We have 1.5 billion people, and of course there's India on this side, and this is Southeast Asia. This Southeast Asia is one of the most densely populated area of the world. That's why we have 500 million people, and it was in between them that Burma was hinged into that. This is the geographical area. So why in Burma we have so many indigenous people or ethnic nationalities? We call it ethnic nationalities. In the Burma census, is that ethnic nationalities, you must be in Burma, your forefathers must be in Burma for at least 2,000 or 4,000 years. So a sort of indigenous people. So if we were to apply this Burmese term of ethnic nationality, none of us will be Canadians. Only the Aborigines, only the First Nation will be Canadians. So this is what we call ethnic nations. That is where the argument is about the current, whether Rohingya is an ethnic nationality or not. That is the topic. So why do we have so many ethnicities? Because the migration routes from Burma come from Mongolia, from China, another group. Another group comes from China. We call it Thai Chinese, right? And they mix here. And another group from Myanmar, from Cambodia, as well as from the island nations of Philippines, Indonesia, and so on, they come here and then mix here. And we have here the mountain ranges as well. So the psyche and the rationality of the Burmese is they have no security and they are very vulnerable. And that is what most of the foreign leaders know about it. Now let us hear what the American ambassador, Derek Mitchell, say about Burma.
Because number one is geography. This is a country of 51.5 million people, surrounded by about 3 billion. I mean, it is, you have China on one border, you have India on another border, you have 170, 180 Muslims in Bangladesh across a porous border, a front relationship with Thailand. They fought Thailand over many centuries. With that kind of an environment, the only thing they felt they had for protection, I used to call it politically, were mountains and malaria. They had this horseshoe of mountains along the ridge, and then folks would invade, and malaria would take them, and then they'd have to retreat, and then they'd invade again, and malaria, and then they'd retreat.
And so when Burma fell into the British Empire, that was way back in 1826, they thought that Burma was just an extension of the Indian Empire. So it was administered as one country. And then the British discovered that here there were the Bengalis, the West Bengal and East Bengal combined together now has something like 1 billion people, right? So they encouraged the overpopulated areas into Burma to do the agriculture. For after all, the British Empire is a money-making machine. They want to have the people to grow rice, because here they discovered that this is a very scarcely populated area and also scarcely populated area, and besides it's a very fertile area. So they encourage the migration from the Indian continent, especially the Bengalis, into to this Arakan area. And this is the root of migrations of how they come. So some of them come from Calcutta and some from Dhaka. But the main population come from Chittagong, because very near from Chittagong to Sittwe, they come from. So since that is one country, then no need to be immigration or any papers, they just go and they work there. And later the British discover that Burma was entirely a new country, nothing to do with India. And so they separated administration from India to Burma and called a directorial administration. It was separated in 1938. So Burma became what you call a British Empire, entirely a new country. And this is when they administered Burma, they discovered that Burma is composed of so many tribes. And here the Myanmar are only here, the one called Burma or the Myanmar tribes. Here are the non-Myanmar, here are the Chin, and here are the Kachin, here are the Shan, here are the Karenni, and the Karen, Mo, and Rakhine. There are so many ethnic tribes. So what do? Is for the Myanmar, they administered it from Rangoon, now called Yangon. And for the frontier areas, they administered it from Upper Burma, from Manly area, and the spread. So since that time, what happened here is that, and this is the British ambassador to Thailand, Derek Mitchell. He's still living in London, and he make a research on it, and what is it? This is a very simple answer to the matter of British practice. There was no such identity as Rohingya known to the British government of either India until 1937 or Burma after the separation of India from 1st April to that year. In the 122 years between the conquest of Arakan, which was in 1826, and the Burmese independence of 1948, not a single reference of Rohingya is to be found in any of the British official report, regional gazetteer, census, legislation, private correspondence, or personal remembrance. Even if such a self-identification had been made, the census enumerator would have written Chittagonians, as they were under strict instruction to do both in 1921 and in 1931 census. That was the British census. And if alternative identities were offered, there were other names, just like we call it Koto, Banna, Babuji, Ma, Zebadi, Cholia, Bengali, Surati, Pucha. We have so many names, but the word Rohingya never appears in the British record until 1938 or 1942. The presence of the persons of Islamic faith in Arakan and indeed the whole of Burma had been recorded by the British in considerable detail and has in any case been attended by writers, historians and nationalities. It is not a matter of dispute. The 1901 census described as the Arakan Mohammedans, and by 1931 their number something like 51,000. So where does the word origin of Rohingya come from? There was a big village in Arakan, and it was the big village was inhabited by the Chittagonians. Chittagonians is a big village there, and then they were very authentic Muslim. They actually strict to the Muslim law, and they have the big earring and so on. And when the British encouraged the other Chittagonians to migrate here, they want to stay in this village, but the villagers said, "We know that you speak the same language as us, you are a Chittagonian and you are a Muslim, but you are not an authentic Muslim. You cannot stay in this village, you have to stay outside the village." And so they have to stay outside the village. But later, these people came more and more, and this outside the village, they call it a new village, which in Burmese means Yuate. So there's a Yuahao, means the old village, and there's a Yuate, means a new village. And later, the new village become much bigger, and then overwhelmed the old village, and they call themselves all Yuahao. Yuahao Da in Burmese means we are the people from Yuahao, and Yuate Da means you are the people from the new village. So Yuahao Da is what we in Arakanese language, it becomes Rohingya. So in Arakanese, we go Rohingya. And to a new Chittagonian coming and living here, listen to that Rohingya. I have to call myself Rohingya, and he heard, that's why, oh, it's Rohingya. So that's the origin of why Rohingya came to. But still, it was not recognized by anybody else. Even they call themselves as Rohingya or Rohingya. And this is the origin of record. But there were people living there, the people call them Mujahid. And what is Mujahid? They call themselves Mujahid. They don't call themselves Rohingya at that time. They call themselves. So what is Mujahid? So Mujahid is one who dares to do the jihad. We are the Mujahid. There are many Muslims who dare not do the jihad, but only the Mujahid dares to do the jihad, which he can die for all the religions. So they came here. At first, most of them came as Syrian agriculture, and this is all the historical records that became the numerically dominant ethnic group in the Meiji frontier. The British regarded the Bengalis as amenable subjects because if compared to the Arakanese, and soon Akyab Mississippi became one of the major exporting cities of the world, and that is why it helps Burma to become the rice bowl of Asia. That was before the Second World War. But things doesn't yet then. There was a Second World War, and during the Second World War, the British ran away to India. That's everybody knows about it. And the British, in trying to retake Burma, they organized the Muslims and armed them, promised them a sort of an independence. And that is where the problem started. We'll give you independence, and started. But instead of turning the guns on the Japanese, they kill all the infidels in northern Arakans. That's called all the infidels. Who are the infidels? They are the Buddhist Arakanese, Buddhist Rakhine. So in the Mongol massacre, which was in Mongol area, they killed 30,000 Rakhine Buddhists in one day. And the whole of this three townships of Bugidang, Mondo, and Ratetown, they killed all the Buddhists and they detonated them. So the spectacle of genocide and ethnic cleansing has been in Arakan since 1942. That is history, and that is history. So, and when the British came over, that is the situation. Now, so there was a spectacle. So in this town, this three township, which we have, Arakan is a strip of land here. So this three township was dominated by the Rohingya, but the other rest are dominated by the Arakanese. Okay, let us forget about Arakan and let us turn our history on India. India gained independence in 1947. And when India gained independence, India was divided into two entities. One is Pakistan and one is India. And Pakistan had two countries, yes? East Pakistan and West Pakistan. And when East Pakistan was found, at the specter of that independence, this Mujahid, led by, when there was a specter of independence, a Mujahid delegation was sent by Jammu Abdul Ulama Islam to Ali Jinnah of Arakan. Who is Ali Jinnah? Ali Jinnah is the founder of Arakan in as much as Gandhi is the founder of India. So they went, these Muslim leaders went over to Ali Jinnah and asked them to incorporate these two townships, these three townships from Arakan area to join East Pakistan, which means they are not only infringing on the national sovereignty of the Union of Burma, which just gained independence, but also taking the chunk of the motherland of this three township from Burma to join with East Pakistan. Of course, when Burma has so many ethnic nationalities and so many insurgency, but not a single ethnic nationality tried to take this chunk of the motherland to join with a foreign country. This is history has been recorded right here. So they went over to Ali Jinnah, and Ali Jinnah and asked them to cooperate, but Ali Jinnah said, no, I have already lots of problems with India of this Muslim killing the Hindus, nothing to do. Go and sort it out with your Burmese counterpart. And so Ali Jinnah refused them. And so they came back, and then they were already armed by the British. And so they started a rebellion of 3,500 Mujahidins. At that time, they don't call them Rohingya, they call Mujahidin rebels. Burma at that time doesn't have the Namatamato, the Burmese army. There's no Burmese army at that time. There was a Union army, Burma, the Union army. The Union army composed of all the ethnic nationalities. We have 4 Chin Brigade, 5 Kachin, 5 Karen, 2 Shans, and so they are all amalgamated. And it was a democratic government led by Prime Minister Unu. Prime Minister Unu tried to negotiate with them, but they won't accept. So the Prime Minister sent this Union army and quell this Mujahidins. Many of the Mujahidins went over to East Pakistan, and all the remaining ones they negotiated with Prime Minister Unu, and since then Burma has accepted these Mujahidins as their Burmese citizens. And for this, they were given 10 minutes broadcasting from the Burma Broadcasting Service in Rangoon. This is a fact. And in the signing, of course, I can, when you ask questions, I can say the detail of the ceremony, and so, but due to lack of time, so, which means they were recognized as okay. That is what really happens with that. Now, Burma doesn't stay democracy for a long time. Soon, General Ne Win took over the country, and then he started the ethnics. And this is the Mujahidin press of what the Burmese press, how depicting how this Mujahidin tried to take the country into other countries. And this is the Mujahidin flag. Under this flag, they call it Kajamid flag. So, and then there was a military coup. Okay, then set aside the Rohingya. Where am I at that time? Where am I? I'm just a 16-year-old boy and knows nothing about politics. I know I have to play and I have to study, that's all. And I was a first-year student at the Rangoon University. And I'm very happy here. But in Burma, there's a saying that because the independence was started by the Rangoon University students at the time. That was Aung San was student, the father of the lady was Aung San. So he started the movement. So there was a saying that what Rangoon University think of today, Burma will think of tomorrow. So, and General Ne Win and the Burmese general knows that the brain behind all the resistance movement to the military will come from university. So this is the university, and this is the Rangoon University Student Union. And there was a tea shop here, and we used to rove around here, and it was very happy here. But naturally, the students, they hate the military, and so on 7 July 1962, they demonstrated here. And this is my hall, and I was one of the students among them. And they were just demonstrating. And suddenly, they shoot into the crowd of the students, killing 126 students. Providentially, I escaped there, and then many of the students ran away and joined the insurgency. But I happened to meet a teacher who happens to be a Muslim. Of course, I knew Muslim. I said, "You want to fight the government? You want to fight this military? He's too strong. If you go and fight, it will be only one gun. Why didn't you go inside and fight?" And since then, I have become, of course, I went back to the university. So the student union, which we are so happy, so they not only they kill the students, they kill the student university, but they also blow up the student union like this. So, and as I've already the next day the student union became like this. So the Myanmar military, now the Tamador, they started the ethnic cleansing policy. So this is the flag of Burma when we gained independence, and this. The star is the Myanmar, surrounded by Shan, Chinka, Chinkaji, and all the ethnic nationalities. And when Ne Win take over, he changed the flag into like this, so that the socialist is just trying to make one religion, one country, one language. That is what they are trying to do. That is what the military is trying to do up to this day. So, which means so, and this is what it happened here. And since then, I become a very changed man. Okay, let us forget about Burma and turn again on to Bangladesh. As I've already said, there was West Pakistan and East Pakistan. But East Pakistan knows that West was exploiting. Here are the Pathans, not the Bengalis, and here are the Bengalis. And so, so there was a liberation, Pakistan liberation, that was way back in 1971. And they sent the army here, and there was ethnic cleansing, and more than 10 million refugees run away to the neighboring countries, and about 3 million of them come into Burma. Of course, the Burmese has to accept them since they are refugees. And but when the West Pakistan Liberation War, the Bangladesh became into being, Burma was the first country to recognize the Bangladesh and ask the refugees to go back, about 3 million of them. But not all of them go back. They discovered that in this Bondo area, they can speak the same language, and then it's very fertile area to see. And so about half a billion of them remained. And how did you know? This was admitted by the Bangladesh ambassador to the British ambassador, and it's in the British records of the in London. So, and this is what really happened. And as I said, they win. When it comes started the ethnic cleansing, but they will try to organize in 1973. The Revolution Council sought the public opinion of drafting a new socialist constitution. The Muslims from the Meiju frontier, this three township are called Meiju, submitted a proposal for the creation of a separate Muslim state, and a Congress of Rohingyas parties was held at the Bangladesh-Burma border and called it the Rohingya National Liberation. By that time, they had already adopted. Once the treaty was signed, they dropped the name of Mujahid, because Mujahid is very radical during the jihad, so they don't call themselves Mujahid, and then they started calling themselves Rohingya. So they called it. And when the this Rohingya National Liberation Front was, this became the last force of the head, who launched a military operation known as the Operation Dragon King, and approximately 200,000 and 250,000 Rohingyas fled to Bangladesh, where they were recognized as the UN refugees, So my question is, here during the liberation war of East Pakistan, why did the Rohingyas are not settled? The Rohingya in the liberation war participated not from the Bengali side, but from the West Pakistan side. So they were acting as informers and spies and informers. With West Pakistan acting as spies and informers. So when the Bangladesh came into being, this Jamal Ulama Islam leaders were finished off, and this is the main reason of why Bangladesh did not want the Rohingyas. And this is the main reason. They don't want to have these betrayers in their midst. So this is the part of history. Okay, if the Rohingya belong to the indigenous Burmese ethnic group, and the question is, why does it not join and identify itself with other ethnic nationality movement? And this is also the question. Way back in the 70s, to be exact, on May 10th, 1976, at Bandar, the National Democratic Front, NDF, was established by 12 different ethnic nationalities, political parties, and organizations. And Rohingya did not take part or even make an attempt to identify themselves with the persecuted ethnic nationalities of Burma. When the vigorous ethnic cleansing goes on in the late 90s and early 20s, all Burma Muslim Union formed. And in 1983, the Muslim Liberation Organization of Burma was formed. The Rohingyas were simply aloof and alien to the Burmese scene, and no wonder nobody in Burma accepted them. The other aspect which I also discovered in my research is that even though there were several ethnic groups in Arakan states, such as the Rakhine, the Mro, the Chakma, the Kaman, Dainet, Momja, adhere to the Muslim, even though they worship Muslim, yet they have no problem with the Rakhine. So this Rohingya become a big problem. That's why the Rohingya in diaspora. So nobody wants them. Because they cannot identify with the Burmese ethnic nationalities. So the Burma don't want them, and Bangladesh don't want them. And so they have to go to some other countries, and this is where most of the Rohingyas in diaspora and was designated at the United Nations as the most persecuted people of the world. And this is where other countries. And this is where the Rohingyas there was in Thailand, how they were trafficking. And one thing, do they have a systematic research? In Rohingya, there's no central committee. They have so many political organizations, but there's a country. But in Burma, if you go to Karen, there's a central committee there. If you go to Kachin, who are rebelling, they have the central committee there. Chun have a central committee there. Karen have a central committee, and so on and so forth. They all have. Even the Arkanis, who are not the Rohingya, but still fighting their cause, they have the central committee. But Rohingya doesn't have any central committee. So, before going to Rohingya, let us see what is the geographical position of Arakan. The Arakan state is a large strip of land stretching along the Bay of Bengal to the west and flanked by the high mountains to the east. Through the geographical position, Arakan finds itself at the crossroads of the two continental entities, South Asia and Southeast Asia, between Buddhist Asia and the Muslim Hindu Asia, between the Mongoloid tribe and the Indian Veterans. And this is what is the geographical situation of the Arakan states. And this is how Arakan was. So if we were to analyze the Rohingya population, there were two categories of Rohingya. One is the majority, if not, there was 98% of them. They are farmers, retailers, petty traders, and lead a simple, contented life. Have no problem calling them Bengali Muslim or Kala or anything else. Kala or anything. The name they inherited traditionally, indicating the place of where they came from. A great many of them had not heard of the word Rohingya, and did not have the slightest idea of what is all driving them out of their traditional homes, and why they cannot live in peaceful life just any of their predecessors. The other 2% of the people are the elites and the radicals living in Bangladesh, India, Middle East, and in the West, and they are the ones themselves. No doubt they are good organizers. So when I went over to Europe, especially in Stockholm, the European Bangladesh committee invited me to speak, so I went there hoping to meet Rohingya. But there was not a single Rohingya. All were Caucasians. They are well dressed. Some of them are millionaires, and they are well informed. They just, of course, they're very naive about India or Rohingya, but they just want to help the persecuted people, and that's how they exploited it. And now, as you know, also the Rohingya radio broadcasting regularly from Oregon, and you can turn on it So what they're doing is that, so question, they are very, if this 2% of the Rohingyas are very good organizers and trying to change the world, the opinion. So, and this is the history of the Rohingya. I'm not asking that history is repeating itself or something like that. It's up to future. Now, the current affairs. What is the current affairs? Is that in the mid of 2016, that's last year, Harakat al-Akin, or the faith movement led by Attaullah, who was born in Pakistan, a foreigner, and educated in Saudi Arabia. He led a resistance movement and killed some of the policemen, attacking some non-police stations. And this year, he attacked the 30 police station. Okay, Aung San Suu Kyi has already become the de facto leader. And also, we must know that even though Burma is changing from dictatorship, it is only half. In Burma, we have two governments. You know about it. I'm not going to emphasize more about it. And the military government is more powerful. But Aung San Suu Kyi knows that there is a problem. So he asked the outsider, Kofi Annan, to set up a commission and to put up the recommendations so that they can solve the problem peacefully. And on the day where Aung San Suu Kyi is going to announce that they accept the Rohingya problem, and this fellow attacked. And so this is the fellows, and these are the caves, and of course this has accomplished, and these are the cases. So in the current crisis, we have two versions, and let us hear what version of this
is that Aung San Suu Kyi was the ultimate beacon of democracy. She had been fighting for human rights and stood up to the very brutal military dictatorship in Burma, and that's why she received the Nobel Peace Prize. But since becoming the de facto leader of the country, her position has somewhat shifted. She has received international condemnation for initially her silence and lack of sympathy over the hardship of the Rohingya community. And now that she's making a statement, she's coming out to defend the actions of the government, saying that the violence is to stop the spread of terrorism across the state of Rakhine, which we know to be the heartland of the Rohingya. She's referring to them as terrorists or a minority. In addition to that, she's jumping on that fake news phenomena. Now, what's particularly getting a great deal of criticism here is her very ironic statement that she made, referring to her own hardship, saying, "We know very well what it means to be deprived of human rights and democratic protection. So we make sure that all the people in our country are entitled to protection of their rights." This ought to stir up further criticism, but not enough. The loudest voices seem to be coming from the region. Firstly, from Bangladesh, which is bearing the brunt of this refugee crisis, from other Muslim-majority nations like Malaysia, and most recently Indonesia, and further afield from the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, analysts that I'm speaking to are saying if the international community doesn't step up and go beyond this verbal condemnation, doesn't put direct pressure on the Burmese government, we can see, which we're already seeing ethnic cleansing here, which according to one UN official is the ultimate goal of the Burmese government.
Sam, stay with us. We're joined from Washington now by former U.S. diplomat Priscilla Clapp, senior advisor for the U.S. Institute of Peace. Thank you for joining us on France 24.
Thank you.
You were chief of mission in Burma from 1999 to 2002. It was a time when Aung San Suu Kyi was, well, as Sam was describing, an icon, a beacon for peaceful resistance. She was put under house arrest while you were there. Has your perception of her changed in the past 2 weeks?
No, I simply don't accept the narrative that we just heard. There was indeed a terrorist attack in Rakhine. It came from outside. It was perpetrated by people in the Rohingya diaspora living in Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, coming in through Bangladesh. And they have killed a lot of security forces. This started in October, and the latest attack was timed to follow the recommendations and the presentation of the recommendations of the Kofi Annan International Commission on Rakhine, which Aung San Suu Kyi has accepted and agreed to implement. These recommendations called for a long-term solution there. She was already working on it when it was disrupted by this latest terrorist attack. Their tactics are terrorists, there's no question about it. She's not calling the entire Rohingya population terrorists. She is referring to a group of people who are going around with guns, machetes, and IEDs and killing their own people, in addition to Buddhists, Hindus, and others that get in their way. They've killed a lot of security forces, and they are wreaking havoc in the region. The people who are fleeing out into Bangladesh are not only fleeing the response of the security forces, they're fleeing their own radical groups, because they've been attacking Rohingya, and particularly the leadership, who were trying to work with the government on the citizenship process and other humanitarian efforts that were underway there. This has all been sort of thrown into a cocked hat right now with the confusion that has been sown by this latest attack.
Yeah, but
And I
more
think
than
the
100.
international community has to sort out the facts before making accusations.
It was an attack by militants against the armed forces in northwest Burma that triggered this. That's undoubted. But the question is, shouldn't Aung San Suu Kyi have had at least a word of sympathy for the more than 125,000 refugees who fled to Bangladesh?
I'm sure that she does have sympathy for them. I don't know. She has made a number of statements recently, and it is not clear how many have actually fled to Bangladesh. They have already told Bangladesh that they will work with them to return them safely to the United States when the time comes. Right now, many of their villages have been torched, and they were not torched by the military. The military has done some damage, I won't deny that, but the militants themselves have been going around torching these villages.
Should Burma's authorities pick up on that call made by Norway to let in humanitarian aid groups?
They are letting them in, but they can't let them into the area where there's so much violence going on, because it's dangerous. There were many humanitarian aid groups in there already, but they have made their own decision to leave under the current circumstances, to pull back. They're probably in Sidway or some other parts of Rakhine State where it's safer right now. Some international press, some press have been allowed in with security protection, but it's still a very dangerous area, and these people are still marauding.
Now, Priscilla, earlier you said that Aung San Suu Kyi does have sympathy with the Rohingya community. Why is it that we're hearing reports of landmines being laid between the border of Myanmar and, of course, Bangladesh? Does that show a lack of sympathy? That's to prevent the Rohingya from returning to their country.
Who is laying the landmines?
Reportedly,
The landmines are also in the hands of the terrorists. We don't know who's doing that.
Bangladesh squarely accuses authorities in Burma of laying those landmines.
Well, that may be so. They may be accusing the Burmese, but that's not necessarily who's doing it. Nobody really knows what the situation is on the ground.
We've heard criticism from the likes of Desmond Tutu and other Nobel laureates asking for Aung San Suu Kyi to speak out more. What's your reaction to that?
I understand the situation she's in. I've lived there, and it's a very divisive society. There are many different ethnic groups, many religions, and with the transition that's going on, they have a lot of freedoms now, and some of them are abusing those freedoms. There are extremists on the Buddhist side who have become very political, including the main opposition party. They're using the anti-Muslim sentiment for their own political purposes. Rakhine politicians are doing the same thing. So if she wades into the middle of this very volatile internal political situation with a lot of harsh words, one way or the other, either against the military or against the Buddhists, she's going to be dead meat.
So what should the international community be doing at this particular point in time?
I think the international community is already on the job. You have to look at what the Kofi Annan Commission did. They made a very thorough investigation of the whole situation. They came up with a whole set of a very comprehensive set of recommendations pointing out
Okay.
for long-term.
What did the United Nations of Ghana say? Please listen.
On the situation in Rakhine, and I focused mainly on the report from the Rakhine Commission, which I had the privilege of chairing. There were 9 of us, 6 from Myanmar and 3 internationals, but we managed to produce a report which was with consensus without much tension, even though we think that it's a strong report, constructive and honest. At this meeting this afternoon, it's clear that everybody agrees on what is required to be done in the short term. Stopping the violence, getting humanitarian assistance to those in need, helping eventually for the dignified and voluntary return of those who have left and are in Bangladesh. This is not going to be easy. They will only go back if they have a sense of security and confidence that their lives will be better. And we in the recommendation indicated that they should not be put in camps. They should be allowed to go back to their villages, and they should be helped to rebuild and reconstruct. The report covers a wide range of activities I'm sure you've seen, from economic and social development to intercommunal dialogue to education, health, freedom of movement, and above all on the key question of citizenship and verification, which has been a real problem for the Muslim community. And as you know, the State Council accepted the report and indicated they will implement it. She set up an interministerial committee to work on the implementation. Just before I left Geneva, I met with the minister chairing the interministerial group leading the implementation of the report. She also intends to set up an expert group to help advise the implementation on the implementation of the recommendations. And this would also include international experts, and hopefully that would also give a possibility for dialogue between the international community and Myanmar. What was important is that they have accepted the report, and the report is generally accepted by the member states, by humanitarian and development agencies and NGOs, and so it could form a framework and a basis for action as we move forward. And hopefully the Myanmar and the international community can work together on these broad issues. And I think it's important for Myanmar that Rakhine is settled. That will give them time and space to focus on the other major problems in the country at large, because it's taken lots of time and effort and resources. I'll take your question.
Now let us hear what the UN Security Council said.
Good afternoon.
This is the chairperson of the UN Security Council.
The Security Council, the Council had very extensive discussion, exchange of views. Without any doubt, the Security Council is seized on the matter. The following is what we have agreed. The members of the Security Council expressed deep concern about the situation in Rakhine State, acknowledging the initial attack on Myanmar security forces on 25th August. They condemned the subsequent violence, which has led to over 370,000 people being displaced. They expressed concern about reports of excessive violence during the security operations and called for immediate steps to end the violence in Rakhine, de-escalate the situation, re-establish law and order, ensure the protection of civilians, restore normal socio-economic conditions, and resolve the refugee problem. They welcomed the government of Bangladesh's effort to provide assistance to refugees and welcomed UN and other international efforts to support the government of Bangladesh. They noted the commitments made by the government of Myanmar to provide humanitarian assistance to all displaced individuals without discrimination. They called on the government of Myanmar to fulfill these commitments, facilitate humanitarian assistance to those in need in Rakhine State, and to ensure the protection and safety of humanitarian actors. They encouraged further dialogue and cooperation among the states concerned. They welcomed the Secretary General's efforts to encourage calm in Rakhine. They agreed on the importance of a long-term solution to the situation in Rakhine and called for implementation of the recommendations of the Advisory Commission on Rakhine State, chaired by Kofi Annan. In that context, they welcomed, as a first step, the government of Myanmar's establishment of the Ministerial Implementation Committee for the Rakhine Advisory Commission. They confirmed that the international community stands ready to support the government of Myanmar with implementation.
So what happened to Canada?
I think it's important for Canada to know what's going on in Myanmar for a couple of reasons. One is that the head of that government, the Nobel Peace Prize winner, is also an honorary Canadian citizen. And secondly, I think also because Canada has re-engaged the United Nations, wants to be another actor in global affairs, and we hear that Canada is back. And Canada in the last 10 years, brought about something called the Responsibility to Protect, this international initiative that says we won't sit in our hands when mass atrocity crimes are taking place, but we'll get involved diplomatically and worst case worse militarily to protect civilians if needed. And this is a case where that we need a strong country that doesn't have any colonial baggage in the region that can actually try to be an honest broker and try to protect these civilians. And so that's why I think Canadians should care, and what's happening in Myanmar also has potential to get into a much bigger conflict. So we need to do something to actually help people there. Those that haven't had the luck to leave yet, or those that want to stay but are facing deadly genocidal violence. I think that's where Canada can stand up and try to be more forceful and not just hope that Aung San Suu Kyi will take action, but actually force her to take action, or at least try to push her even stronger to do something, because if we don't, we'll make the promise of never again another unfulfilled promise. I think in Myanmar, where Russia said we're going to protect the Myanmar government, China's saying the same thing. So we're seeing power politics play out.
Okay, what did our Prime Minister say? So, the book came to Burma.
Has most strongly captured the attention of the world. As we address long-standing issues, social, economic, and political, that have eroded trust and understanding, harmony and cooperation between different communities in Rakhine, the support of our people and of good friends who only wish to see us succeed in our endeavors has been invaluable, and appreciation. I began my education at the St. Francis Convent in Rangoon, which makes me fancy that I'm entitled to special blessings from Your Holiness. But all the blessings you confer will be shared by all of us, that we may be able to spread goodwill and joy throughout our land.
And so this two supreme religious leaders of peaceful religions agreed to work together. And this is the final solution. Agreement was reached between the repatriation of refugees with the help of UNHCR. Both Bangladesh and Burma agree. So my conclusion is that Burma is 4 or 5 times larger than Bangladesh, but in terms of population, Burma has only about 1/4 of Bangladesh. So what we, the Burmese, are afraid of is that there will be an outflow of the Bangladeshi Muslims came into Burma and overwhelmed Burma, and this is the main reason of why the problem is now just open for questions. Anybody can ask.
Mm-hmm.